Hi, friend. So I just want to ask, what if everything we think we know about the world is actually wrong? What if the things you're led to believe about anything aren't true? This would not be the first time in history that a whole sum of beliefs aren't right. So what does that mean to you? Greetings and salutations. I am Jeremy Tank. I am a master designer, a brand coach and consultant, a rapid transformation therapy practitioner, and an expert in behavioral branding. And if you're watching this, I'm your brand guy. And today, I'm talking about the idea of what you know not being what you know. You see, your brain is programmed from the point that frankly, before you're born. From that point till about the age of 7, your brain is in a state of hyper-awareness, hyper-learning. It's in this theta wave state that's similar to hypnosis. It's similar to really deep meditation. And in this state, it is super easy for ideas to go into your head and for you, your cells, your body, those parts of you that you don't even recognize that you control, to learn about your environment, your life, your behavior, your community, things that you're supposed to be doing. You are trained to be a certain way and to believe certain things in order for you to survive. Now, 5% of what you do on any given basis is conscious. That's conscious thought, that's conscious mind, that's conscious effort, conscious movement forward. But there's full 95% of your life that you are not consciously controlling. These are parts of you that are other than conscious. This could be your subconscious mind, right? The subconscious mind really drives about 95% of your behavior. That's the biggest part of what is going on in your life. The things that drive you forward, the things that push you and make you feel certain things. That's that subconscious mind. And a lot of that has to do with the way that your body grew up. And I don't just mean your body is in this. The body is in the brain. The physical, neurons in your brain. That is part of your body. That is part of deciding what you do before you're ever conscious of making decisions in things. Because as you grow and learn and experience, it tells your body what you should and should not be doing, how you should be behaving. And the mind works with the brain and the body and all of these different organs and senses within us to create a unity of perception. And that ends up being your experience, your daily experience. And really, your mind, whether that's the conscious or the subconscious, is there to experience what life is giving you and sort of pattern match. You see, the brain is a super powerful pattern matching machine. That's what helps us really recognize day versus night, days, on end. When you get older, you take this stuff for granted, but when you're young, you don't know if that sun is going to come up again, ever. Maybe you see this in your animals, your pets, as you leave the house, and the dog at the end of the day is like, "Oh my God, you're back! I'm so happy to see you!" Right? Cats, well, they're their own thing. Sometimes they miss you, sometimes they don't. But dogs, certainly, it's like their attention span, their understanding, their knowledge of the world, really, when you leave, they're not sure if you're ever coming back. At least from what we understand about the way dogs process. I'm not a dog. I was raised around dogs, so, maybe that's something. And the thing that our system recognizes as we grow up, we recognize these cycles subconsciously. We start moving through them effortlessly. And really, we start to repeat them because they become familiar. And familiarity means safety to us. And the challenge with that is that we start repeating behaviors that we saw when we were younger. We start repeating the behaviors that were given to us, through us. Maybe your mom and dad didn't have the greatest marriage relationship, and when you grow up, you recognize that you are repeating some of that behavior. Maybe you're not recognizing that you're unconsciously repeating some of that behavior. And a lot of that is that subconscious training that lies in your body, in your limbic brain, your midbrain, the spinal cord. These are areas where emotion and sensitivity pop up to save you in a fight or flight response. I'm 42 years old. I know in the relationships I've had, there have been plenty of fight or flight responses. That's part of being in a relationship, is learning to communicate and learning to understand someone else's point of view and understand what they're going through and what they, trying to understand, right? The best we can do is try, because every one of us is essentially a little universe with all of these different ideas and concepts within us. And that changes how we view basic things. And it's funny because all the way around the world, there are shifts in different cultures about how they treat children, about how they treat adults, about how they treat men, women, different races. Growth. And this has a lot to do with the beliefs that are trained into that culture. And when it's trained into the culture like that, we know that these things perpetuate forward until there is a choice not to continue to perpetuate that. It has to be a choice. It has to be a large choice with a significant amount of people that want to change. Or it's you that wants to change. You are saying, I will not do that anymore. And really, as a parent, when you're raising children or you're the child getting that non-attention or attention, you're thinking to yourself, when I'm older, I'm going to recognize this pattern and either follow this if I like it, if I feel like I'm loved, if I feel like I'm enough, if I feel like I am getting fulfilled as a child, I'm going to repeat that behavior because that is good behavior. Or I hate the way I was treated. I am never going to do that ever. It's similar to that's the way the brain works. It's this binary on or off, right? This is that contrast I keep talking about. The brain recognizes the contrast of things, and it either wants to repeat it or it wants to repeat it and fix it. And that's what happens as we repeat these cycles, these patterns, these dynamics in our life, until the point that we choose another role, until the point that we choose another way of being. And the thing is that when we look backwards in time, there are plenty of points of history where the world didn't want to change, and it believed something so intensely that, well, how about Galileo? The earth revolves around the sun. Killed, right? Because that's heresy. How dare the earth revolve around the sun? Now we know with the science, or at least the observation capabilities that we have now, that the earth and all the other planets revolve around the sun. And that's the question that really got me going earlier today. And that's the question I asked at the top of this video. What if everything we know is not right? What if it's wrong somehow? What kind of thing would shake your world fundamentally that you believe in 100% that goes one way, that if that's not true, it shakes everything down to its foundation? If there's aliens, I'm okay with that. Honestly, I think a lot of people are okay with the idea that there's aliens out there until religion starts going, well, we're, God's gift, and therefore aliens, are they God's gift? Does it have anything to do with God? Like, all of a sudden religion is in trouble. So we can't change the beliefs of a system that has gone on for over 2,000 years. The church. That's a hard system to overcome because the church wants to maintain. Just like we, in our beliefs, in our systems, in our bodies, want to maintain. That's really what the conscious mind and subconscious mind, that's their goal. It's not to shake things up, it's to keep you alive, to maintain, to create balance, and keep you moving forward. You, as a conscious being, want to move towards some goal. You want to move through your life, and when you come across these blocks, challenges, fears, objections, like we come across this stuff all the time, and we recognize that a lot of these behaviors are built into us from our training, from our youth, from all the stuff we've experienced, from heartbreak, from challenge, from all the stuff that's gone wrong, right? Or all the stuff that's gone right. All the stuff in our lives, all those experiences make who we are, and our body and our minds go, okay, well, let's just keep repeating that, moving on this path that we're moving on, right? That's great. We're doing this. We're getting there. We're just day after day, moment after moment. We're getting older. We're just doing the same thing. Well, in that way, you're really just recreating that conscious and unconscious cycle of balance. And I've talked about before the three different types of energy movement in the universe. One is the pendulum. And when you're trying to move forward in a way in life and doing whatever, and your body is going, well, let's just keep things balanced. Let's just keep things stable and steady. And, we'll kind of limit the risk and limit the unfamiliarity, which we want to stay safe, because that's really what that mind-body connection wants. It's so very physical. As long as things are safe, stable, secure, you as a body, the influences that come up through your kidneys, through your adrenals, through your stomach, through all of these sorts of things into your brain that help influence your decisions, they really just want to stay alive. They really just want to perpetuate life. And that's cool. But it kind of limits you. And consciously, we can make the decision, okay, well, I'm going to change. But those changes are really based in the beliefs of what we've learned in the past. And a lot of those beliefs are based in things that frightened us, things that challenged us, things that scared us, things that pushed us back as a young person. Or just slowly over time, right? Changed how we perceived our world. And that ends up holding us back in a lot of ways. Until we choose to change those beliefs. And then we can take on new roles for ourselves. And a new role doesn't mean you are changing. It doesn't mean your identity is changing. It doesn't really mean anything is changing, other than it gives you an opportunity to stretch, expand, and get the things you want in your life that you deserve, that you've always wanted in your life, that you think you should have by now, but for some reason you keep that pendulum swinging between you move forward and then something happens and you kick right back. That's the sort of thing that happens to me until I see it, until I recognize the pattern of it, and then I can shift it. But it takes becoming aware of the pattern. And in a lot of our modern society, we don't take the time to recognize the patterns in our own life. In fact, I would step out on a limb here and say it's darn near impossible to really recognize the patterns in your own life. You're too stuck in that swamp. You're trying to read the label from the inside of the bottle. I used to use that phrase a lot with companies, because when I was working branding on them and I would try to figure out their values, their ideas, their concepts, their goals for the future, they would use a lot of internal dialogue. And internal dialogue meaning like funky words that they get that I don't really understand. And I have to go, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean to you? How is this shifting for your business? And then they would have to break that down even further. And I really have to go, okay, now talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. What does it really mean to you? Sometimes that's what it takes. Because when we get to the core of that, we're trying to help each other, really, see who each other are to move on to the next steps in the path. And that means confronting some of those beliefs. That means confronting beliefs that are dangerous and damaging. That means confronting beliefs that are hurtful towards other people. Joe Dispenza, in one of his books, wrote that education makes transformation. Because as we grow, as we adapt, as we train our brains and we sit in our minds and we allow that subconscious mind, the body, and the other than conscious part of us, our proprioception, our microbiome, right? That's part of it. All the viruses, the bacteria, the fungus that are inside of you, helping you be, helping you live, helping you prosper as a physical particle being here in the world. Like all that stuff is part of you, and all that stuff becomes trained into you and your, for lack of a better term, vibration, right? All that stuff is part of who you are in your resonant self, you. And that includes all of the beliefs that you have been brought up with, you've been trained to like really hold on to dogmatically. And that's the thing, is that I wonder sometimes why we still hold to some of what we believe. There are plenty of things that, with the science that keeps coming out weekly, it seems, in neuroscience and quantum science and brand new computers that are super fast and quantum, lasers that stretch to the end of the galaxy and loop on themselves so you can basically see the back of your head. Like all of these things show us that the world is not the way that it used to be, but they're so limited in scope. We honestly have an overabundance of information right now, so that we are not educating ourselves to improve us as a species. We're just so busy putting it out there. And that's where it really helps to have another person. Therapists are great. Because they listen, they hear the patterns that you are expressing from your experience, because from inside that bottle, you can't read the label. It's backwards, maybe it's upside down or color or blanked out. You just can't read it. And it's funny because the reticular activating system, that part of us in the back of the brain, it's a system. It's not a physical thing, although there is a piece of the physical brain that does this sort of filtering. The reticular activating system recognizes the pieces that we choose, we tell ourselves are important to us and our lives. And it helps narrow down those, 5 to 10,000 inputs that are rushing through our system on any given second. And it narrows down to about 40, give or take 40. Pushes those into the active experience. The active experience being that moment in your head where you are recognizing the inputs, recognizing what is happening, trying to form a decision, trying to form an opinion, feeling the emotions well up. That's always a part of it. Those are usually that unconscious part of ourselves, because in the active experience, you have the conscious and the unconscious part of yourselves, and every little piece of that is a fragment of memory. It's a fragment of you. It's a fragment of what you have experienced, lived, embedded into yourself, into your cellular structure. In the form of proteins, in the form of DNA replication, modification, messenger RNA stacking on top of the DNA, sort of like Legos, so that when DNA transcription splits the cells into something new, there is different DNA in each cell. That's epigenetics. On a moment-to-moment basis, how much you are talking about yourself in a positive or negative, the kind of food you eat, the kind of songs you sing, the things around you, the amount of light that you get, the amount of exercise that you get changes your DNA. It changes your DNA. Well, what's it going for, right? There's a great theory going around that essentially life, our existence, the universe is a mathematical algorithm, for lack of a better term. It is an algorithm that is ever moving forward in the way that our computer AIs are working right now. It's trained slowly over time with samples through experience, and it makes choices and then starts to determine the future and predict and control because it experiences all of that. And when we look backwards in time, we can certainly see how humanity has built one generation after the next, after the next, after the next. Of course, then we hit the Middle Ages, and it's like, crash right back down. And then what happened? And then we had a shift of beliefs. We had a shift of beliefs from polytheism to monotheism. We had a shift of beliefs from worshiping nature, looking at herbs as healing, looking at balance in some areas of the world, to a feudalistic structure built in, systems, architecture, wars. But we believed at that point in time, if you were alive at that point in time, that was your life. You believed that was your life. You could not step outside the bounds of your life. I know it's sort of comedic to think about that, but I mean, go watch A Knight's Tale. It's not exactly historically accurate. For those that know that movie, that's a big joke. But there are pieces of that that actually resonate. Why would a Thatcher become a knight? They wouldn't, ever. That would not even be considered possible at that time. But nowadays, it's not part of our belief structure that someone who is born into a family occupation really needs to stay there. There are still some families that practice that way, but that's not the way that we look at things now. Our beliefs have changed as a society. And yet there are still things that certain sects of society hold as true that are holding us back. So the idea really is that you have this structure. And the structure is you. It's your beliefs, the education that made you who you are. And that starts before you're born. It continues on through your childhood, the way that you're raised, the love between your parents, the love between your parents and you, the love between you and your siblings, the way that you were praised or punished, the religions that you were taught, whether that be, Eastern, Western, capitalism. These are all beliefs that were put into you as a certain way of being, a certain knowledge of the way that the world is, and that you continue to hold as true because deep down these beliefs inform who you are and how you interact with the world. That's super important. But they're not law. And that's the funny part, is that they're not law. And we take it so often that when someone says, well, I believe this, we take it as an opportunity for the brain to practice that contrast that the brain is so good at practicing. Like, it's one of the primary mechanisms of the brain, pattern matching, contrasting, right? These are things in art. It's like, this is a fundamental value of what you have to do as art. You have to bring contrast into your art. You have to bring contrast into your painting, your photograph, your graphic design. Contrast is necessary to create focus. Pattern becomes repetition in the art world. And repetition helps train the brain. See, all of these cycles, all of these ways of thinking and being and learning and interacting affect us deeply on multiple levels in our life. Subconsciously, consciously, brain, physical wise. And when it comes down to it, the structure of the world that you are taught dictates what you are able to accomplish with your mind. Because if you were raised that God controls all, where does that leave you? I know for my brother, it sort of pushed him in the area of atheism. Well, I just choose not to believe in any of that. I hear God controls all, and I think, okay, well, when I'm looking at quantum science is everything is energy on a basic fundamental level, and consciousness is energy at a basic fundamental level. And when we look at the work of just forgot the guy's name, the quantum physicist from What the Bleep, who was working down in Oregon, in Eugene, he says, look, consciousness is energy, and it's this giant quantum field of everything. Now, if I have ever heard of the ultimate expression of God, that would be it, right? It is everything, everywhere, and there is a system behind it. Because there's always a system behind things. This universe that we live in is collections of systems. You are a collection of systems. Which is fun if you actually allow yourself to believe in it. And that's really what it comes down to, is the more that we educate ourselves about what's possible, the more that we read, the more that we learn, the more that we can strategize, recognize, create those patterns, and then start to recognize the patterns. And it's really easy to recognize the patterns around us, in other people. It's harder to recognize the patterns within ourselves. It's harder to recognize the patterns of when we are actually being successful. Because this physical form and what we've trained and learned to be is driven by negativity. Your brain responds to 5 times greater signal negativity, something that is designed to be negative, to spike the fight or flight response, to keep you alive, than it is ever the positive response that is meant to make you thrive. Thriving has to be a choice. It has to be you learning that survival is not the be-all, end-all, that there is possibilities beyond that. There is possibilities for you to envision something greater, and then you have to start working towards it. And when you work towards it, you start hitting these barriers in your own beliefs. And when you push hard enough, you start hitting the barriers in other people's beliefs. And then they start telling you the way that you need to be acting and reacting because you fall outside of their comfort zone. You fall outside of their belief zone. That's a good thing, right? Like that makes you Galileo. That means that you're looking at the sun and you're saying the earth moves around the sun, and the rest of the world is going, you're insane. The sun moves around the earth. Everything moves around the earth, right? We have plenty of moments in history where something is not possible until it's possible. The Wright brothers, the radio, telephone, light bulbs. A lot of our modern society are built on people pushing against what others say is possible. So I really just want to show up today to say, look, everything you want to be, everything you want to do, everything you want to create, because you are a creator. You're not here just to experience and stay alive. You are here to create something. And the best way to express creation is through the joy of you being and just doing it. And the thing is that, I've said this before, you don't experience your own identity. That's like reading the label inside the bottle. That's not you. You need people outside of yourself to reflect that back. But it's perfectly acceptable to just be you. And keep doing the things that make you happy. And keep expecting that things will keep going well for you. If that's what you believe. If that's what you have taught yourself, awesome. If that's what other people have taught you, awesome. If that's what you've just stumbled into because you choose to empower yourself as a creator, awesome. Because the beliefs that you were given are only half the equation. The other half is the beliefs that you choose to examine, to confront, to question, to expunge, to get rid of, to free, to liberate. And then the new beliefs that you get to install. Powerful beliefs about yourself and how good you are. About how enough you are. You can accomplish anything. You came into this world perfect. You came to this body as a perfect essence of consciousness. And that's just been sort of filtered over the years, right? It's been sort of filtered over and held back so you could fit into society and fit into the way things should be. And guess what? Now it's holding you back. Now it's holding back from everything that you could want, that you can achieve, that you could muster up. And I think you're worth more than that. I think you're worth the world. I think you're worth everything. I think you are the universe incarnate. And in my work, that's what I help people learn. That's what I help people do. If you're interested in what I do, I would love if you visited my website, www.thinktankcreative.net. You can schedule a free 30-minute consultation on there. I would love to hear about what you're experiencing, thinking, believing, doing in your life, what your goals are, what your vision is, what you're trying to do. And if we're a good fit, I would love to invite you into my Manifest Design program, which is all about creating your life, your vision, your brand, your essence in a way that it does grow because you have such clear focus and such confidence in where you're going. Because that's all it really takes, is getting you to believe in yourself. Because you're amazing. And I love you. Take care.